Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to Season 2 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems. This is episode 79. He's been in the real estate industry since 1979, and in this time has worked as a salesperson, broker, sales manager, and board executive. He was CEO of the Brandon Real Estate Board from 1993 to 2001. He has served at the national level and chaired the Association Executives Council for CREA, the Canadian Real Estate Association. After Brandon, he then moved to Saskatoon to become the Executive Vice President and then CEO of the Association of Saskatchewan Realtors, holding that position right up until December 31st of 2019. And he has now taken on the role of CEO with the London St. Thomas Association of Realtors. A veteran, a true industry leader and influencer, it is my pleasure to have Mr. Bill Matter join us here on the show today. Bill, welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
Thank you, David. It's great to be on with you.
It is great to have you here, man. I know we sort of chatted about this some time ago, and I know with the big move and everything else going on in your world, and you know some of these other newsworthy events happening at this time. It's certainly it's taken us a few minutes to get there, but no, I'm excited to have you here, and I thank you very much for making the time today.
Thank you. It's again, as I say, we've known each other for a few years through different events and whatnot, and it's great to be on. I think consider each other friends, and it's always great to chat.
Well, sir, yeah, I would agree with that. And I remember when we had first met. I think this was back at one of the Oria events, and having dinner that evening. And then from there, it's been an open line of communication. So no, I definitely I value the relationship, and I want to start by officially welcoming you to Ontario and congratulating you on the new role as CEO of the London St. Thomas Association of Realtors. They are certainly lucky to have you.
Thanks, David. It's a great organization for sure. I'm really looking forward to the role, and I'm looking forward to being in London. As you know, I'm still in Saskatoon for a little bit. I've been actually officially started work for the L-Star on April 20th. I have been working with them since March with my staff and with the board of directors and just getting established. But with the current situation, I haven't been able to actually physically be in London. So it's been a little different running an organization from afar. But again, I've got a great staff, great board of directors, and I'm looking forward to actually getting settled there and moving forward.
And as you said, you're actually making the travel over here very shortly. I guess you're jumping in the car. You're going to be doing the sort of trip across the one.
Yeah, I'll be traveling on the Trans-Canada Highway for about 3 days, starting on Friday, going through Northern Ontario, which I'm really looking forward to. A beautiful drive there. I'll be a bit of a tourist, but I'll be in a bit of a rush too. So hopefully I don't get any tickets. But yeah, I hope to be in London by Sunday afternoon, Sunday night.
Oh, there you go. Well, yeah, watch out for the OPP. Watch out. People say watch out for the moose, but I'll tell you, for all the trips I've done through Ontario, I've rarely seen any moose. Traveling the country 3 times on the bike, the first moose I actually saw was way out in northern BC. And that was on like my 3rd trip across the country. So, I mean, everybody says watch out for the moose. I'm going to say watch out for the moose just because I think it's something you got to say. But no, I wish you safe travels with that. I really do. And so is there anything in particular that everybody should be paying attention to now that there's officially a new sheriff in town?
Yeah, not really. I'm not the kind of guy to move in and change everything all at once. I'm looking forward to getting my feet wet and understand the situation there. Obviously, I have lots of experience in the business. I've seen lots of things. I've run a few different organizations and been involved in a number of different organizations as a volunteer. So, but I just want to get a kind of idea of where things are going there. I've reviewed their strategic plan. It's in great shape. have lots of good relationships with other CEOs and other realtors in the Ontario area. So I'm, the province of Ontario, and certainly the London area. So I'm looking, just looking forward to it. I just, again, my focus is going to be on bringing, the best services I can to our members, and making it effective and affordable for them.
It'll. I'm sure that there will be a positive, and not to say that there's any bad stuff going on over there, but it'll be a positive shakeup to have you as part of the family there. And I know, like you said, since April 20th, but being in person is obviously as that next level. And I think for everybody, we're all kind of getting back to what we call that new normal right now of what's going to be happening moving forward. And in fact, with that, you think we'll be getting back to these big in-person gatherings such as, conferences and industry events, like anything anytime soon? What's your sense about this? And I mean, with the connections that you do have and colleagues across the country and different boards, what's kind of the buzz going on right now? Are people saying things are going to be happening again this year? Are we probably holding off till next year?
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be different. It's going to be new. As you know, one of my favorite involvements in the Western provinces was Banff Western Connection, and I was very involved in the operation of that event. And I know lots of Ontario folks have been there and enjoy it. And I mean, the next one's set for January 2021. Um, I have a great hope that I'll be there for the first time as a delegate in 2021. But I've talked to a couple of the folks there, and there is some real concerns about it. I mean, anytime you're going to be having, 500 or 600 people in a room together, there has to be some things in place. Now, if in fact there's a vaccine or something like that by that time, I think that'll change a lot of the concerns. But just for, first of all, for the organizers planning an event like that, and secondly, for the delegates deciding to go to something like that, it's going to be very, very different. So um, one of my other favorite events is the NAR conference in the US. And, November is the scheduled date for the next one. I have a real concern about whether they're going to get 15 or 20,000 people in a convention center in New Orleans by November. And again, NAR hasn't decided whether they're going to host it or postpone it yet. But I think there's real concerns about that. Moving forward, I think provided there's a lot of precautions taken, and as you know, the hotels and convention centers are adapting to this very quickly. They will have policies in place, I'm sure. And again, the big thing that we should be looking for is a vaccine to allow people to feel safe and in attending those types of events. But even at the L-Star, at the London St. Thomas level, we originally planned our AGM for April.
Right.
Had to postpone it to June 30th. It's now being held on June 30th, but it's going to be virtually as opposed to in person. Even 200-300 people in a room is just not going to happen for some time. Korea and a number of boards have done successful AGMs, and I think those can be done virtually. But as far as a large group in a hotel room or a conference center, I think it's going to be a while.
Yeah, you brought up NAR, and I know with NAR, they had reached out to us, and I had gotten a bunch of emails there saying, would you be willing to present virtually rather than coming to the conference to present? And I guess that's a sign of the times. I mean,
Yeah,
I know for myself, I went back and said, of course, if I can help you virtually or I can help you in person, we're there. But the one thing that we haven't done yet, which we know when it comes to NAR, you got to book your hotel way in advance. I
yeah,
haven't booked hotel, I haven't booked flight, and I haven't done any of that based on exactly that point. Is they haven't even decided yet whether they're doing this in New Orleans, like if they're actually physically going to host this thing or not this year. I
yeah.
think they want to, but it's that whole idea of, can they bring that many people together? And then the next thing becomes how many people are planned and ready to make that trip right now. I mean, it's not, for anybody that's been there, what I'm talking about. For anybody that hasn't been there, the reality is, hotels book up really quickly. If you want to be anywhere in proximity to the conference center, you really need to book in advance. There's the idea of obviously travel and flights and such like that. So it's, you know, I'm interested to see if they will pull this off and bring everybody together. And then when you bring up that thing about vaccines, I was speaking to a gentleman who used to work for the World Health Organization, and he had mentioned, he says, vaccine, it's great to think about vaccine, but let's really look at this. How are we going to implement the vaccine? And I just, you stay quiet for a moment and just keep listening. And he says, think about it. Who gets it first?
Yeah.
What country gets it first? Who in the country gets it first? Which people get it first? How is it going to be, delivered? Is it going to be something that you take orally, an injection? What is it? So it's, all these little things started to percolate. I thought, there's the semantics of this whole thing. It's right. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we're sitting here going, we want a vaccine, but to think that a vaccine is just going to pop up today and then all of a sudden we're going to have, a vaccine, it's not going to work exactly like that.
No, and it
So
won't be overnight. Won't be overnight, that's for
no,
sure.
and that's exactly it. So I wonder, I mean, we were saying off air before, and somebody had shared with me this morning that Vegas has announced that they're opening back up June sort of 3rd, 4th time. Um, and there's parts of the US that are, that really haven't been on lockdown at all.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just, I don't know.
Well,
Look, this is the whole premise of adapt and change though. And we've all learned a whole bunch of new things. I mean, look, we have gone through everything from depressions and recessions and housing market crashes, stock market crashes. I mean, we had SARS that affected the market, and you ever seen anything affect our industry the way COVID-19 has? Like, is this the worst that we've seen?
yeah, it's definitely the most, it's very, very different. As I said, I've been through 40 plus years in this industry, both, and again, my first year in the business, 1979, 1980, we had the highest interest rates ever in history. I sold a house at 21% interest. They locked in a 5-year mortgage at 21% to buy this house because they felt it was going to go higher. So we've seen lots of things that impacted the industry, but I've never seen anything that virtually shut us down. I mean, we've seen activity, and I have to really commend Ontario's realtors for the policies and the procedures they put in place for actual showings and making sure people that had to move were able to move. But basically shut down. Most of the stats are showing about 50% drop in sales. I don't think anybody's ever seen that. 50% is a huge number, but the market stayed fairly strong. But there's lots of different, and I've been really fortunate. The couple of the other recessions and whatnot have been not as impactful on our industry in certain parts of the country. Manitoba, was never really that not a huge market. So the impacts of some of those things were not as great. Here in Saskatchewan, we saw a bit of a drop in the last recession, but again, markets were down not even 10%. So to see a drop in sales of 50% is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think we were anticipating a significant drop, so we've come to expect it. But just the adaptation that our members and that Ontario Realtors have made and Canadian Realtors have made over the last couple of months has been incredible. And I think that's really the key. You talked about it earlier, just adapting. When I was selling houses at 19-20% interest rates, we found a way to, obviously you adjust your price point, but you also find other ways of financing. We had a large number of vendor takebacks. I mean, I don't know, you don't hear about that today, but a seller, if they wanted to sell their house, would maybe carry part of a mortgage to bring the rates down or buy down a rate. You found different ways to do it, because whatever happens, people still need to move. They need to buy and sell. They need to live in a house. I mean, if they're gonna, you need to find a way. So we adapt, and that's really the key. I mean, the greatest thing I've seen come out of this situation is the reliance or the move to technology. I mean, virtual open houses, virtual showings. It's been a great move, and I think some of these things will continue on into the future. That they came into effect or more popular because of a necessity, but I think they're going to stay on going forward. So just adapting, whether it's technology, whether it's just innovative ways to find buyers or find mortgages or find financing. There's just you just can't look at the only way you've always done stuff. You need to look at new ways and see what works.
Yeah, it's interesting what you mentioned with the virtual stuff there, and then finding new ways to make things work. And as you brought up the idea, or how Ontario Realtors have done a good job, and you did say across Canada it's been a good job. I have found that the provinces have been doing things a little bit differently. I mean, you know, for one, Alberta says they're opening up hairdressers again, and I'm sitting here in Ontario going like, this is just out of control already, Bill. I need a haircut, man. But
I don't have that problem.
hey, yeah. Well, I know when we came on, I thought,
But
yeah, so I'm just gonna
my
keep
wife
this
had her
thing on.
first hairdo last week. We opened up in Saskatchewan, and that was a very, very difficult appointment to make. Was your first hair appointment after the lockdown? So you
I
need to get
imagine.
ready.
Well, you know what? I've had them planned and they just keep getting pushed back and canceled. But, this is part of me adapting to the change in the market. Okay. No, but keeping it like looking at the realtors, looking at that creative ways of financing back when interest rates were skyrocketing. We look at today, we look at, adapting with the virtual listings, virtual open houses. I know with us in our coaching groups, we've been talking a lot about, virtual listing presentations, and then the virtual showing and the virtual open house, and how to take advantage of things like the Facebook Lives and the Zooms. Instagram just announced yesterday that you can now do group video chats in the Instagram Messenger, right? Which is another step up. Facebook announced that a little while ago of doing the group chat. So everybody's really trying to. Facebook even came out with screen sharing, which
Yeah,
I've heard so far, and I haven't tried it, but I've heard so far it's the quality isn't yet, let's call what Zoom is providing just yet. And I mean, talk about Zoom. Zoom went from what, 10,000 people or 30,000, something like that, or I don't remember what the number. No, now I'm going to flub the numbers big time. I think it was 2 million subscribers to 10 million subscribers or something within like a 30 or 60-day period.
see, there's a stock you and I should have been in.
Right. There's
Actually,
the
funny story about Zoom. A good friend of mine, Doug DeVitri. I don't know if you know Doug from
no.
the speaker circuit, but Doug was on Zoom probably 5 years ago, and he encouraged me to start working on Zoom and trying to do some meetings, sort of, again, provincial meetings by Zoom. We never really got to that point, but I did get a little familiar with it. So I did know about Zoom before this, but
Yep.
I wasn't smart enough to buy their stock. But it's certainly done. I mean, try and imagine what we'd be doing in this situation without it, and take it from there.
Well, what gets me is that last year Zuckerberg came out and made an announcement that 2020 was going to be the year of video. Now, what did that guy know? You know what I mean? Like it's just real interesting. But let me ask you this. Again, you brought up that, and we're talking about the virtual stuff, and you said about financing. Like, what were some of the things that agents did, or even brokerages did, in the times where we saw interest rates skyrocket, or in the times where we saw, whether it be depression, recession, whether we saw even again when SARS came through, '08 with the market. I mean, what are some of the things that you've just seen as trends? Is there something in specific, or does it continue to change as we move?
Yeah, I mean, it's just adapting to the current situations. I mean, in the early '80s, very common financing practice was assuming an existing mortgage. If a house had an existing mortgage at a favorable rate, it was more valuable. It was more attractive, and you work through that. I don't think a lot of mortgages are assumable today. You just go and get a new one, because most of the time the rates are better on the new one anyway. But that was just something that existed. We used to get, CMHC used to have mortgages locked in for 25 years. If you could get on one of those, and they were at 6% or 6.75% at that time, which, believe it or not, was an incredible rate. Today it's probably a higher rate, but at any rate, it's something that we just watched for what we needed to do to help our clients get what they needed. The first half of my career has been in the business, as an agent or a broker, and the second half, or a little bit more than second half, has been as an association executive. So, that's the other thing, is that boards and associations have had to adapt and find new ways of providing services to their members. I'll go back to the agent side, and that's probably more of what's probably listening to this. So agents just had to find ways to deal with their clients in a new way. they couldn't just stick to, well, I always used to, you know, um, do my listing presentation this way, or some wouldn't have a listing presentation. They'd list it because they knew the people. And
Right.
one thing that always comes back to me, and I know you're a big proponent of this too, is just person to person contact,
Yeah.
personal touch, relationships, building relationships and continuing those, and building a referral base. Those are all things that started in when, as long as real estate's been around. But you find different ways to do it. I mean, today you can build a relationship virtually. In 1980, you built a relationship by going to committee meetings, or going to events in your community, or going to the softball game, or coaching a kids team, or those kind of things. Develop your community by meeting people. You can do that virtually today, but you still have to make that personal contact. I do want to get back to the association thing at some point, but I think as far as members and agents selling, it's all being prepared to do what the latest thing is, and not sticking your head in the sand. I'll tell you one story. Is one of my early days in the business,
Yeah.
the company I worked for was a franchise, relatively new at the time, but we had a listing presentation on a little machine that I carried around, that had, like, I think, an 8 millimeter or 16 millimeter loop, that talked about the great product or great services this franchise offered. And I mean, I remember walking into kitchen table with this thing. It was bigger than a briefcase. It was almost a typewriter, if people know what that is. And
Hey,
you
I
pop
remember
it,
typewriters in the real estate offices back in the 80s there.
you just pop it up on the kitchen table, and you'd play this video, and you'd say, "This is what my franchise can do for you, and this is what I can add to this." But nobody was doing that at that time. And actually, even some of the people in my office would make fun of me for doing. And I'm a 23-year-old kid
Yeah.
doing this stuff, and just because it's what I want to do. And the longtime agents are saying, you don't need to do that. Just belly to belly meet them and shake their hand, and you get the listing. But it worked, and that was where you just use what tools are available to you to strengthen that personal contact.
I think over the past 5, 6, 10 years now, we have gotten so caught up in the technology aspect of this business that we have almost forgotten that it is a people business. And a lot of realtors have tried to get out there and build their business strictly through the digital channels. And don't get me wrong, take advantage of them, leverage them. It's proven right now that if you were scared to get involved in video, well, guess what? Here we are in the age of video. I mean, I've been touting this one for years. We're going the direction of the Jetsons, to me, it's not far off that we've got cars that don't have tires anymore and we're somehow floating. But listen, you can call me crazy now. Let's talk about this in 10 years again, right? But when you look at the tech and you look at embracing that stuff, to think that that is the be all and end all of our business, it certainly is not. It's nice to, you should be leveraging video. You should be leveraging social medias. You should be leveraging the connection points. And I've said to anybody, and I'll continue to say to anybody even today, Bill and I can have one conversation right now. And Bill, we could do this in person, over a coffee. We could do this by phone. The beauty of the socials is that I can get on there and I can talk to hundreds or thousands of people at one time as well. The thing is, it is not that personal one-to-one connection. So it's important that people still understand this is a people business. It will always remain a people business. So what are you doing to connect with people? And then you brought
Yeah.
up, this big thing you would carry to a listing presentation. Even when we look at listing presentations today, yeah, if you've got the relationship with somebody, you should be better prepared to win that listing, as long as you carry yourself properly, show up on time, and do the things you're supposed to be doing that you promised you would do. And that's how you get the next referral after the fact. Um, a lot of people are going, well, what do I do for my listing presentation now? And so we've talked about the different things around, the virtual listing presentation, and taking what you might have in a binder or a PowerPoint on your computer and actually turning it or turning it into a PowerPoint, but now being able to present it via video this way.
Yeah.
And to me, those are like, there's the mix of the old with the new. I'm still going to do the listing presentation, say old school tactic. I'm still going to present myself and want to sell myself. And I think if we're, going down this road strategically for everybody, this is not just about you selling yourself. This now comes back as well to, you proving to me that you can sell my home. And so now it's, well, how and why you? Digging for the need, the open-ended questions, really learning about why do I want to make this move? What is it, or maybe what am I looking to buy? And then really you figuring out how can you service that need. And I believe that that's where the long-term comes from, because now I think to myself, you are really listening to me. You've got my best interest in mind. You've done a great job. You're going to get the business next time, if there's a next time, but you're certainly going to get a referral out of it. And again, there's the people business. So that's
Yeah.
the leverage of the old with the new.
Yeah, I think the technology side of it is it makes it, I don't want to say makes it easier, but it's a better, just a new way to present your value. I mean, anybody that's making a decision on a five, six, $700,000 property, whether they're selling or buying, they have to know they're getting value from you, and you need to be able to show that to them somehow. And then, technology it just expands your ability to do that. You still have to make the personal connection, and you still have to make that, you have to have the ability to show value. So that's where, and I think that's something that technology, social media are nice additions. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to have had those in the 80s.
Yep.
I would have loved those things. I'm on them now, and I just think it's a great opportunity, but it doesn't replace two things. It doesn't replace personal relationship, and it doesn't replace hard work. And those are things that unless you have those, it's going to be harder to be successful. The other thing with relationships, and I think we might lose this a little bit these days, and it's one of my concerns within the industry, is not only with your clients, but with each other. Member to member relationships are also very, very important, or agent to agent relationships that, we don't have to present an offer in person. You can send it across by email or whatever, or text, and you don't ever have to meet the other agent. And I think that puts sometimes at a bit of a disadvantage. That, again, I'll go back to the old days where we used to have parties all the time and meet the other agents and get to know them on a more personal level. And when you're dealing in a tough situation or a tough negotiation with an agent that you've never met before, it's different than if you're dealing with somebody that you know, and you know is a good person, and they've got their best, your best interests of their client in hand. And it's harder to do that virtually. And I think that's where we need to, I don't want to ever say we should never be using social media, but it shouldn't be all we do. We need to still get together in person.
I think that that's where the value comes from. I think that that's the big missing link here is what the social media has given us the ability to do, and the technology is that disconnection point. I mean, look, I grew up in this biz. My father was a broker owner for the first 20 years of my life. And so I do remember the typewriters and the whiteouts and all that stuff in the offices. But I also remember how people were making their money back then. And, this was at the time a pocket full of quarters, and then it became, the big bag with the cell phone, and then it became you could put it in your car and it had the curly antennas on top, and then it started to obviously evolve from there. But those people were making money because they were seeing people. And one thing my father always, even to today when we talk about this stuff, he says, so many agents are just lazy. They would rather email or I guess a few years back fax the offer than go in and present it. He says, back in the day, we went in and presented that thing. Like we told people why this was the best offer and why we were offering it this. And we had the opportunity to meet the other agent and, build relationship with people.
Yeah.
And
I hope the two of us don't want to come off sounding like old fogies here and about
no,
but it's a different world. It's much, it has made those personal relationships much easier, but you still need to pursue them, and you need to build them, you need to develop them. And, these technology makes it easier to do, but it doesn't replace the work that you did to develop them.
Okay, so here's the thing then, and I'm with you about sounding old about this stuff, but no. Here, I was doing a presentation Feels like yesterday, but I definitely haven't been in front of a live group of people like in a room together for what 3 months or something, which is just unreal how quickly this has all progressed. But one lady said, because look, this was before COVID hit, and we were talking about inventory's low. It is a seller's market. Does it matter what the market's doing? It does not. We were talking about multiples and communication with your buyers and your sellers and even the other agent around, bottom line, how you communicate with each other. And months ago I had put a post out in one of the Facebook groups, asking what is the, I think it was something like, what's the most annoying thing that or what annoys you most about other realtors. And one of the things was lack of respect. The other one was lack of communication. And so in my mind, it was this positioning around, yes, the technology is there, but we need to have a proper communication channel with the other party that we're dealing with. And again, this can be done by email. It can be done by a text message, by phone call. It can be done by video. But when you can get into that moment where you're having that one-on-one phone call, or even better yet, that coffee with somebody, you've taken the relationship to a different level. And so as I was talking about this, we were going on about it, one lady says, well, I got into multiple offers, and I was in, and she'd said like last week, and this was back then. And she said, with a very big, successful agent. And she says, it was, and again, I'm going to flub the dates, but let's say it was like Tuesday. And this listing agent said she wasn't taking offers until Thursday night at 8 p.m. Now, this lady here who's in front of me asking the question, she says, well, how do you deal with that? How do you communicate that properly? There's not a lot you can do in that multiple offer situation. It's frustrating for us. It's frustrating for our clients. And, the listing agent's not responsive. I said, well, what do you mean non-responsive? She says, you send a message off and they don't even respond to you, or they just come back to you and say, hey, Thursday, 8 p.m. It's like, 3 words, and you can't get much out of them. You can't learn any more about that property so you can make a good offer. So she says, what do you do? She goes, we ended up losing the offer. Like we ended up losing, well, we lost the offer. So I said, did you connect with that agent after the fact? She says, no, why would I? I said, well, you see, because this situation at the moment right there, it wasn't so favorable to the way you wanted it to go. And everything was done through digital channels. Find a way to connect with this person after all said and done, the dust has settled, and see if you can get them together for a coffee. Go introduce yourself, build a relationship with this person. And you don't have to, oh, I hate you and I don't like the way you did business, but you can talk about, hey, this is where it was a little difficult on my end. Maybe this is why you were doing this, and kind of talk it out. And now what you're doing is building a relationship. And then the next time around, when it gets to that point where you might run into this person on either end of the deal, well, you know each other. Now you can leverage that text message and be like, hey, Bill, it's me. What do you think? And now, because we've had that other conversation where it's been in person and we've gotten to know each other, now you're going to be a little bit more responsive to me on this. And so it's that idea of, not sounding like old people of going, don't use technology. It's not going to work for you. No, it is.
Yeah.
But much to what you said, it's still a relationship business. And when we look over these 40 some odd years, right up into today, I think that the constant is it's still a people business. And that's hence why I will tout leverage technology, leverage the socials, leverage the videos, leverage it all, but understand that if you do not actually physically connect with an individual, you're not going to build a strong or resilient of a relationship. So I mean, look, outside of, I guess, the influx of technology, would we agree then that this business has kind of remained very much the same?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the business is the same, and I will be prepared to say that it will always be the same.
Yeah.
You still have to deal with people on a person to person or one-to-one basis. As long as we represent a client, you're going to need to have a relationship with that person. I think too, we tend to need to think about the long game more. I think a lot of times our industry is focused on let's do the deal today, instead of looking at, build a relationship with that person and deal with them multiple times in the future. And also the referral part of it is so important. To build I think we need to be thinking about building a 25-year career as opposed to a 5-year career, and just try and develop that as a as a goal. I mean, obviously you need to deal with each client in the current situation, but it's not just that situation. And also each agent, like you said before, if you can develop a relationship with the agents, and they're competitors, there's no question. It's actually one of the best cooperation or co-opetition or whatever the right word is. We need to collaborate, but we also compete. But, I mean, even with your competitors, it's not about beating them. It's about working together with them so we all do better. That's part of it. And if you build a relationship with an agent today, and then you have a tough deal with them another period down the road, 6 months from now, then they know you. And, maybe there's a reason that somebody wasn't able to return a call to you that you may never know unless you get together and talk to them about it. So if you understand why somebody does something, it's a lot easier to work with them again down the road. I think and again, social media tends to be very immediate, and we're very quick to post something critical of someone when we may not know the full story. And it's a little, I think it's always better to kind of try and smooth that over, or not have to smooth it over in the first place. So I think we need to think more about what the reason is behind somebody doing something, rather than just be critical of them right off the bat. At some point, some people need to be criticized, but that's a different story.
Well, no, and listen, once in a while it's got to happen, but on the overall, I think even when we look back to where we started 10 weeks ago, there was a lot of folks who, if some people were still out there doing work, some people were out there very critical of them and publicly posting that. And, that's where I jumped out right at the forefront of this, at least from my shoes, and wanted to just, to the industry say, look, we're better than this. We are, before business people, before realtors, before, professionals, we're human beings, and everybody's got their own emotions, and everybody's got their own things and that they're dealing with in life. You don't know what it is. And so you cannot, point fingers. And I think that because of social, there's become a very big, and look, herd mentality is probably pretty normal to the human race.
Yeah.
But because of social media, it gives everybody this ability to hide behind a screen and not really show face, maybe face to face, but instead point fingers and then, walk away and duck because there's nothing really coming at you. I think that, again, when it comes to, respect and communication, as you said, through the people business, and I mean, I talk to realtors all the time, as we've been in this, both of us in the industry for a long time. We know that a realtor to realtor referral is one of the most powerful things you can get. There are people that build massive networks off of just that alone, whether it's out of province or it's, just out of town, in a different city. So it does come back to, again, that idea of continuing to build the people business. And as you mentioned about the, building a 25-year business versus a 5-year business. I think that some of this comes from two things. One is the fact that we had such an amazing market a few years ago, where, you put a house on the market today, and by, 5 minutes from now, it was like sold for over asking by $100,000. I was seeing houses in my neighborhood that I was thinking, like, they've got to have their walls and their floors painted with gold, because it doesn't make sense that house would go for that type of money. And so we found a lot of success from people in the business because it was just easy to do the business. In that same time, we had this whole influx of online lead gen and social media and all the technology just getting bigger and stronger. And now we come out of that and we sit here today, and it's this idea of, well, no, we got to move. Everything should sell as fast as it did. And this other coach told me that if somebody doesn't work with me after 2 years, I should take them off my list. Why would you do that? If it's a people business and people are moving on average every 7 to 12 years, you want to keep people on there for at least 10 years, never mind, even better, 25 years.
Yeah.
The opportunity is over there.
Yeah. Yeah. And their potential value, the potential referral client. And again, I told this story on another podcast, but I remember selling a house for $12,000.
Wow.
$12,000. That's a credit card purchase today.
Wow.
But, and again, a lot of agents wouldn't take that. They wouldn't take that customer to that property, because the value, even then, the value was low. But within 6 months of that transaction, same people referred me to a $95,000 transaction, which at that time was a pretty significant deal. So that you just can't build it based on immediate value. It's a long-term process, and you get multiple referrals back if you do things properly. You can't just, you know, fire them through like a production line. It's more of a, you know, again, you say the word relationship a few more times, and that's a drinking game maybe for this one. At any rate, it's just a people business, and I think too, social media actually is a huge benefit for people if they do things right, and be more positive and be more supportive. Because I totally agree with you that you know we're so easy. Some are so easy to criticize other agents, whereas the public sees that as a bickering, infighting group that they may not want to deal with any of us. If they see that, if they see us as a more supportive, promoting the industry and promoting their value to all of their clients, it's a much better image for the industry as a whole, and it helps everybody.
It absolutely does. So what are you seeing then right now today as we sit here? And I guess the obvious might be saying COVID, but what do you see as the biggest challenge facing our industry? And you know, is there is there one major concern that you've got in any direction?
Well, I mean, we're going to need to see how the economy comes back after this. I mean, I think, you know, I don't want to be political here, but I think all of the governments have done a good job of helping the public through it and helping businesses. Again, there's always some issues going forward, but we're going to,
Personally, Bill, I'd like to get my hair cut, but sorry.
yeah,
I apologize. Where were you there?
yeah, but moving forward, we're going to have $1 trillion debt, and we're going to have, each province is going to have huge deficits. So there is going to be some cost to that, and the interest rates are going to be affected by that. So my biggest concern is people that aren't working today getting back to work, and that effect on the economy. But again, as I talked about earlier, we've been through economic issues before, and the market will recover. It's just we have to be prepared to help people through that. That's probably one of the things I've been most proud of our industry during this period, is how they've helped their clients. You know, you see people, you know, taking the precautions, taking the safety measures, you know, providing, you know, COVID kits for people to show houses with masks and gloves, and just thinking of ways to help their clients. And that's really what this industry is all about. So as we go forward, we're going to have some economic issues. I don't think there's any question about that. There has to be. It might take a while,
Hmm.
because we are going to have to pay back the debt and the things that we've paid. I think it's been necessary. So we'll see likely a bump in interest rates. We'll see some people unable to pay for their homes, but you know, that's not new. The part that's new about this is that we haven't been able to work with clients, so, or in a certain level of service. So moving forward, as long as jobs come back, and then we'll go back to, you know, what were the major issues we were talking about January, February of this year. Pardon me. I go back to saying, what would I want to have speakers come to talk to my members about? You know, what would that have been in January of this year? Would have been probably technology. Would have been about prospecting. It would have been, you know, all of those things that our members, and we're going to have to get back to that. There's going to be new technologies out there. There's going to be new ways of doing business. I think our industry's in for a bit of a change as far as associations go. There's going to be some amalgamations. There's going to be some mergers. There's going to be some changes to how that, you know, how we deliver, how associations deliver services to members. That's going to be really important. And I think that's something that all of us have to look at, the way we're delivering MLS to our members. It's a huge benefit to our members, but we have to make sure we're delivering it in the best possible way, in the most cost-effective way, which I'll be quite honest, I don't think we're doing that right now. So we're gonna look at that. As you know, I'm involved, and London's involved in a major amalgamation of 22 organizations, MLSs, going into one provider, which is a big jump. And there are some issues with it. I'm not going to say it's been easy or it will be easy, but that's really the way we need to provide those services to our members. Very different than the old way. We had to have, you know, individual boards. We had to have, you know, single MLS for a certain region. But, you know, with technology, we're not going to have to do that anymore. So we have to look at better ways to provide services.
Yeah, it is certainly going to be interesting, and I know we've seen associations across the country, starting to get together and amalgamate. We've seen MLSs starting to get together, and I think there's a lot of new, even initiatives, technology initiatives that are being handed down to people. And again, some folks are loving, other people are not so much because everybody just wants to kind of keep getting back to work and doing their thing. Um, I guess. What do you think agents could be doing right now to completely capitalize on the moment? And when I say capitalize, let me just preface that by saying I don't mean taking advantage of anybody in any position. I'm talking more about where we're at today. I mean, a lot of people did sit on their hands for the past 8, 9, 10 weeks. And again, to each their own. I am not judging anybody for the people that worked or the people that didn't work. I hope everybody's practicing their social responsibility. I know up here in Canada we have done a phenomenal job of ensuring that we've been doing a lot of what we can to keep people safe and proper. Um, but is there one thing that agents could be doing right now that, could help them adapt and move forward out of this? Again, keeping in mind the, past markets that we've been through and kind of things we've done there, this being very different, but kind of understanding the position we're in?
Yeah, I think most previous issue or situations like this were strictly financial and based on market fluctuations, that sort of thing, interest rates. But this one's about a health issue. It's a far more personal issue. But I think members, generally speaking, members have been very good. Um, but I think there's an opportunity to maintain contact with your client list by just checking in and saying, "How's everything? Are you okay?" Um, that's where show that you care about somebody, and not ask them, do you want to buy a sell? If you want to buy a sell or sell a house today, give me a call. It's more about how's everything going? Are your kids, how are you doing at home with your kids, not in school? There's a lot of opportunities to just make a connection and build that relationship. Um, and not have it be strictly about asking for business all the time. And that's where probably I would like to see that continue forward. It's not a matter of asking for business all the time. It's being in that person's head that you are the person to call. I was going to say mind share, but I
Well,
didn't
you
want
can say it. Go for it, man.
that's
Everybody,
too,
hey, it's all good.
that's too easy. You need to be top of mind when that person thinks about buying or selling a house, not constantly asking them, "Do you want to buy a house today?" It's more about being that person that they want to do business with when that time comes. So this is an opportunity to establish yourself as that person or that agent, and be kind and be caring. And I'm going to go back, and this is another person that I will quote, Sean Carpenter. I don't know if you know Sean from the U.S., but
No,
he's
don't
another
worry.
very popular speaker, but a great person. I haven't met him in person yet, but a lot of common friends. But his three things that he speaks to people about all the time. He says you have only three goals in this business: build relationships, solve problems, and have fun.
Yep, I like
If
it.
you do nothing else, you'll be successful. And that's, I mean, I can't think of a better, and again, I hate to copy somebody else's lines, but I can't think of anything better to talk about right now, is that you need to build those relationships and solve problems. Whether it's, buying or selling, if they, trouble financing, all of those things with regard, if they need a bigger house, they need a smaller house, all of those are problems or pain points that a person has in their life, that if you focus on that as opposed to focus on making money or buying, selling them something, there's a lot more success there. So there's an opportunity to move that forward, and not just when we get out of this issue or this situation, a great opportunity to continue with that.
I've been saying to people this entire time that we need to be calling, we need to be doing social media, and we need to be leveraging video. And part of the phone calling is calling your contact list and understand who your young families are and making conversation around, what they're doing to keep the kids busy. And then, folks that might be needing some assistance, what can you do to help them? And then, what about the shop owners that you've been frequenting that you haven't seen in a long time where you've been spending your money? When was the last time you called them to say hello? And even if they don't know you, think about the mind share you're building for down the road when you go back in there one day. And I do recall at the top of this whole thing, somebody had said, well, I don't want to call my clients and talk real estate right now. It's not responsible. And I said, who said you should be talking real estate? And I think that everybody needs to internalize that, is that on a regular basis, and exactly what you just said there, Bill, is, calling people just to check in, say hello. And to what I said when it came to the listing presentation was open-ended question, digging for the need. The more you dig for the need and you ask why, right? And I used this example the other day in a video, and I said, I'd like to get a bigger house. Why? Well, because, we need more space. Why? Well, actually, because my kitchen doesn't have a kitchen table. We all eat at the island because we got this big custom, island in there, but we don't have a kitchen table anymore. And we're kind of missing that idea of like sitting around the table. So you're really looking for a kitchen table. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, now we know why they need a bigger house. So ultimately, when we're looking for these things, and we're going to help them maybe do some shopping as well, we can start to look for that kitchen that might fit that table properly, rather than, oh, but the garage or the backyard or the whatever. Because again, we've dug for the need. We've asked the open-ended questions. We have solved the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
The more people can open up their ears, the more the industry can open their ears and listen to that, I think the more people will be able to solve problems and have a lot of fun at this business. But again, it comes back to the fact that it is a people business. And when we look at the current situation, you should have been calling your list for these past 9-10 weeks. You should still be calling your list. And no, you should not be talking real estate every single time. And the more you do that, the more mind share you build, the more you use in other channels to market yourself. Now you're positioning yourself as that person that they want to work with when the time comes, and or refer when the time comes.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
there it is. So you also mentioned about the kind of the debt and the money that's going on there, and talking about, as I asked, what do we see as the biggest challenge? And I want to ask you, where do you see the next 5 to 10 years of this industry going? When I brought up the debt idea, because right away I think about my kids. And I think that, my son being 9, my daughter being 7, I feel like they're going to be the ones that are going to be swallowing a lot of this debt at some point. And that's left to be seen. I think it's kind of predictable, but at the same time too, I think it is what it is. So as we look at a little bit more immediate, and we look at the next 5 to 10 years of this business, technology, you talked about prospecting and that stuff, business practices, iBuyers. And iBuyers were a massive topic earlier this year prior to this whole thing hitting. What kind of things should everybody be aware of as we move forward? What should we be working to adapt to? And is it still that right there of iBuyers?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw some of the downside of iBuyers within this system. I think that it still will be a force, and it still will be something that our agents need to be prepared for. But I still don't think they should be afraid of it. I think, again, you need to be prepared to adapt to that situation. And quite honestly, if an iBuyer situation, or whatever we call it, is the best thing for their client, if it is, it may not be, but if it is, then they should help their client deal with that and adapt to it. It's not a matter of saying, oh no, this is a terrible thing, whatever's terrible, Zillow's terrible, or whoever's bad. They may or may not be for an individual person or an individual agent, but if the client wants that, then you can't say it's bad for them, unless, they might not be getting as much money for their house, but they might also be getting some time saving that is valuable to them. So I think we need to be prepared. Our members should be prepared to adapt to those things and say, not just run away or put our heads in the sand. These things are coming. iBuyers definitely going to happen. How's it going to work? How are we going to make it work best, or how are you going to make it work best for your clients? And how are you going to be able to inform them properly of those, the pluses and minuses? It's not always just talking them out of it because it's better for you. How do you know what's better for them? And that's really, iBuyers, I remember when MLS.ca got started, and I'm trying to think of the previous name for it, but there was a private company first started putting all the listings on the internet. Well, at that time, that was the end of the industry as we know it. That's what everybody thought, we're done. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. That's one of the best things that happened to the industry, is having clients have access to that information, and our sellers have access to a much wider group. So, what was once viewed as the end of the world, it's almost like the looms. Everybody thought, we have to go out and crush all these looms because it's going to cost us all our jobs. Well, it actually created another industry. And internet, MLS.realtor.ca now provide a great service, and there's going to be new things like iBuyers that is a benefit to members or agents. So I don't think we want to shy away from those things. We need to embrace them and adapt to them because they're not going away.
I don't disagree with you there. I think that we're going to see more and more tech. We've been seeing it for the past decade, maybe decade and a half now, a whole bunch of different technologies. But I think as we've exhausted today for sure, and in a good way, that it is and always will remain a people business. And I believe that, when we look at the challenges out there and we talk about the iBuyers and we talk about the tech, and I've been saying this for years, I think the biggest disruptor in this industry, and again, evidently, as we sit here today, it has been COVID, but outside of COVID, I believe the biggest disruptor is us. It's people. It's adapting the technology, um, but maybe not doing it the right way or not supporting it the right way or not remembering that no matter what happens, we have to be the conduit of information. Realtor.ca is wonderful. And I know as a homeowner, we can go on there, we can look around and we can find houses, we can shop, and then we can go to our realtor and go, look what I found, look at this. And so we are more empowered with education and knowledge, than the buyer of the past. I mean, it's long are the days of the black and white MLS tear sheets that everybody would run into the office to grab first, right? And if you missed out on it, you missed out on it. Everybody's got access to the info now, but it's the same thing when we look at the websites that are out there. Um, from a lead capture perspective, and I will always say that a website is a lead capture point. It is not a lead generation point. I believe the ads and the marketing and everything else are the lead gen point. That being said, from that, we've got a lot of agents that will go out and attempt to have the biggest, brightest, shiniest website with all the bells and whistles and spend stupid amounts of money to do that so they can provide all this information. And again, in my mind, you've got to have something that represents you properly. You've got to have something that when I look you up online, it is the person that I met, at that coffee shop or that business card I have, and it's the same photos and logos and branding, and it looks up to date, and I can get information out of it. However, if you give me everything on that website, then I don't have to call you as much. And if I've got that relationship, which we've acknowledged is the ever most important thing in this business, I'd rather just call you. I don't want to have to do any digging. I'd rather flip you a quick text message and say, here's what I need, and let's keep moving. And that's where, your customer service comes in. But this brings us right back to the bottom line point. It is and always will be a people business.
Yeah, if people trust you and want to do business with you, they will do business with you. Doesn't matter what somebody else offers or what other technologies out there. That's where it boils down to. The client's going to decide who they do business with, and you want to be the one that they want to do business with. So that's really where it boils down. I mean, every technology is different, and some works for some people, some works for others. There's not one simple way or one single way to do this to do this business, and that's one of the greatest things about it. But it boils down to being the person that the client wants to do business with. And there's lots of business for everybody.
There certainly is. And so again, as we boil all this down, it's be the person that people want to work with, build on your relationships, and as you want to adapt and to the new change of the new normal in our world, it's to remember that the one thing that hasn't changed is that this is a people business. So get out there and build relationships with people.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to come out of this thing. It's going to be over in some point. I don't know when, but I think those of us that have, worked through it are going to come out stronger and, be able to serve our clients better. My clients are now my members, but I'm going to do my best to keep them in the business and keep them working hard. So.
Well, we look from as an outsider, we sure know that you continue to lead and influence this industry, and I'm excited for what's ahead for all the members there, working with you, and they're certainly again lucky to have you. Tell us, I got to ask, man, tell us about Captain Obvious. And now, just before you do that, for anybody that doesn't yet follow Bill on social media, you got to follow him. I mean, again, just from wonderful knowledge, insights, teachings, and even connection points in this industry. But Bill also has this. I think it's daily, is it not?
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
daily post that Bill does, and it's Captain Obvious. So, anyways, yeah, tell us more about this one.
Well, it's just something that, again, a lot of people didn't know who it was and didn't know what it was doing. And this has been going on. This is like five plus years now that it's been underway. I've got kind of the original one. It was, yeah, it's over 5 years ago that
Okay.
I started. And it was just sort of, it first started as it's sporadic, just some thoughts that come into my mind. And I don't think a lot of people want to be there, but um, just things that I think about and things that I think are funny or important or pertinent to the day. And I do that. It just sort of starts my day. It goes at 7:05 every morning, 7:05 Saskatchewan time.
Okay.
Um, I've been a little bit off the timing lately just because it's been so busy, but it does go every day. I've missed again. When I do my holidays, when I take time off at Christmas, but basically it's every day for the last 5 years. But it's just and they're not. There's no common theme or anything like that. It's just things that come into my head that I think I'd like to share with people. So some of it is about strange things that I think are we haven't thought about, or funny words that I think people don't use properly or should use more often. And sometimes I get really philosophical and serious and say some things that I think people should think about. But generally, it's just a little bit of my off the top of my head every day to get my day started.
I love it. Start your day with Captain Obvious. And for anybody who's going, but I don't understand. Well, my suggestion is you go follow Bill and you start your day with Captain Obvious, and you'll get a better sense of, because there's certainly a whole bunch of them that I'll look at and just chuckle or right away, and I've responded to you. I like it though.
Yeah,
They're good
yeah.
good thoughts, and I like the way it's a good day starter for sure.
And just so you know, every day is it's not going to be a gem every day. Just so you know.
Hey man,
But
look, we in our own shoes like to believe that it might be, but then we're realists when we say
yeah.
it's not. So, Bill, any last words or tips that you'd like to share with anybody watching us today, and then listening to this podcast across the airwaves as it gets released on Friday?
Yeah, I'm just anxious to join the realtor community in Ontario, and again sort of get back in the swing of things. I've been out of the loop for a little bit, and I just want everybody to know that I am still in the business and I haven't retired. I'm too young to do that. I will someday, but I'm not sure when that'll be. But again, I just think this has been my life. This industry has been my life, and I just think it's the greatest thing going, and I look forward to working with everybody in the industry for some time. Obviously, London St. Thomas area is going to be more my focus, but all of Ontario and really the rest of Canada, I'm looking forward to meeting my colleagues in person and folks that I haven't met. I look forward to catching up with you. And again, I invite you to follow me on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn.
I was just going to ask, where
Just
can people find you?
yeah, I mean, Twitter is at Matter Bill. Facebook is just Bill Matter, and I think just you can Google me and find me on those. I'm even on Instagram, but that's a little more family related, but or business. Yeah, it's not as frequent, but
But you do take
Facebook
some
and
nice
Twitter are
scenery
kind of
pictures too, though.
my main ones. But yeah. So anyway, just look forward to catching up. If I haven't met you yet, I look forward to it, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you here with us. I got to ask you one more question before we go. What made you smile today?
And I'll tell you that one thing that made me smile. But the thing that made me smile the most, I got a text from my daughter with the video of our grandson, just chatting with her, and that just makes me smile every day.
There you go. And what part of Canada is she living in?
They're right here in Saskatoon, so we're
Okay.
we're going to be leaving them
I
behind.
was
So
about
it's a
to
bit of
say.
a tough decision, but we'll get lots of videos and lots of photos. We got
There you go.
two grandsons that are fabulous, and a daughter and son-in-law that are wonderful. But anyway, that makes me smile.
Very cool. Bill, thank you once again for joining me today. An honor having you here, and congratulations again on the new role with the London St. Thomas Association of Realtors.
Thanks very much, David. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
You bet, pal. You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the 7 Ways to Communicate ebook to help you build more mindshare so that you can get more market share. And if you want to be part of our private mindshare community, where we meet twice a month to share live ideas, tips, tricks, motivate each other, there's daily actionable marketing and sales strategies that are delivered to you. You get access to our private VIP podcast rooms. Just click on the group coaching option for a very low cost of only $19 a month. Wherever you like to consume your content, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at DavidGreenspan101. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.